Africa's future. What is your take on that end?
Well, what I can say is that we've heard a lot about the Arch, from him being an anti-apartheid activist, a human rights activist, a climate change activist, and also somebody that was fighting for the rights of children. And just after, or rather at 12 noon today, which is something that has been happening between Monday and until Friday, is where the church bells ring for about 10 minutes. And that is where rather the Archbishop Thabo said, or rather called on those that can actually hear the bell to stand in a moment of silence and just remember Arch. We do know that later on today the city of Cape Town will have that interfaith prayer at a rather memorial service at the City Hall here in Cape Town, and those that will not have access inside the hall due to COVID-19 restrictions, a screen is being set up outside at the Grand Parade, and that will start at 6 o'clock. But to talk to us about the Arch himself, I'm joined here by Mmusi Maimane. Sir, talk to us about how you knew Arch and possibly the first interaction that you had with him.
Well, first and foremost, as a young activist, I can remember we were confronting many issues of racism, and I invited the Arch to say, could I possibly interview you so that you could give your insights? And when he came, he spoke, and I had this interview with him. And at the end of the interview, I said to the Arch, Arch, is it possible for me to take a quick picture with you? And his response was, I've never seen a slow one. And that was such the magnitude of someone who, given the context of the discussion, he was still able to find humor. But every single time we met up with him as a family, I felt always that you were in the presence of someone who fought for justice, someone who always spoke truth regardless of whether it was to whoever, someone with a quick sense of humor. But more than anything, I think a true inspiration to us all. And to me, today is really about a light, that bright light in our country that in the midst of darkness shone and gave us direction. And so we've come as a family just to honor him and to say our story as South Africans who are mixed race, that there's something of a dynamic that says to the people of this country, our story is possible because of people like Archbishop Desmond Tutu.
The Arch was known by many as a teacher. We've heard some of the stories that people relate to us, Arch teaching them, even people that had not met him personally, saying that his teachings is one of the things that they'll be implementing in their lives to continue his legacy. What are some of the teachings that you walk away having learned from the Arch?
Look, I think as a person of faith, we shared a common faith, and the Arch had one of the most generous theology in that sense that you could find. The Arch gave you license to love even the person who would be considered a sinner in the highest level. The Arch gave you license to do that. Because the Arch's ultimate teaching was the idea of ubuntu, that said that we see humanity in others, and because of people of faith, we see the divine in others. When you see the divine in others, you have no license to hate, to discriminate, to be sexist. You have to fight against that. And so Archbishop Desmond Tutu gave us that, bequeathed that to us. We wouldn't have one South Africa today, even the movement we're working in, if it wasn't for the work of people like Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Because he could, in the midst of divisive times, in the midst of black versus white, ask us to be colorful, to be the rainbow nation, to realize that there's humanity even in the most difficult times. So that to me is a teaching that I'll take away from the life of Archbishop Desmond Tutu.
Yeah. One of the things we heard about Arch was that he loved to dance. Did you ever see him dance, or rather be in his presence when dancing?
I suppose, no, not personally. The times I'd met the Arch, also remember, we're part of the post-1994 generation, so I suppose I also met him as he was becoming more frail, as an elderly person. But even in the midst of that, he never lost his sense of humor. So to me, what I take away is far less his dancing, much more his quick wit, his funny quirks, his stories about the fact that he'd have his children come back home after they've watched their friends at school, and then he would say, what color were those children? And then they would say, no, well, I'll have to go back and check. That was the Arch. And so to me, I think that's what, to Mama Leah also, what a generous, incredible citizen. Mama Leah, you know, I can remember sitting with her in a lounge and the Arch, and here was this unbelievable person, this great human being, this not only wife, but mother. So Mama Leah to that, and to the family, to more Reverend Mpo, to so many others. They were such, so my deep condolences to them and my gratitude to them. That'd be the memory for me.
Mmusi, you said you were here to pay your condolences as a family. I'll just toss to your wife here and just ask her, were you surprised by the overwhelming love and support that the Tutu family rather received during this trying time? I mean, people are streaming in and out of that section that has been designated for the Arch here at the St. George's Cathedral, and the number of people on social media that have sent out their condolences.
Yeah, I think what was incredible about him is that it doesn't surprise me, all the love that people are pouring out, because that's what he and his family stood for. They like myself as well, we believe in a God of love, and for Archbishop, you could see that he lived that out. He wasn't about moral policing, he was about including as many people in that love as possible. In his mind, he knew that there was enough love to go around, and that was the basis of the way he treated people. As Mmusi said, he saw God in other people, and he treated people in that way. And he led that by example for each of us South Africans to do the same, that we need to treat one another in love, respect one another, that we need to see the humanity and the deity in each person. And he was amazing like that. And he was kind of the kind of person that we all felt was attainable in some way, because he was very human and yet so full of the love of God, that each of us felt like we were drawn to that. That's what draws people to him. So I'm not surprised to see that even in his passing, people are drawn to that love. He has a legacy of love.
And talking about legacy, we knew Arch obviously speaking out against injustices and even calling out the governing party when they went off the road. And we just heard from the various foundations that he asked that there be no lavish spending for his funeral. And, you know, having known him personally, is that, or rather, you know, those news a surprise to you?
No, I think in the way that he lived his life, he was very moderate. Whenever we had interactions with him, you could see that about him and about his family. They had sacrificed so much in order to see South Africa be reconciled, and I think the reward in that was living out that reconciliation every day. They were just an amazing family. They are an amazing family, and he an amazing man. Yeah, I think for him the richness is in spending time with children, in spending time with family, in fighting for injustice and fighting against injustice. Those are the things that he felt were his reward. And I hope that we as South Africans can make it worth it, that we can live our lives to make his sacrifice worth it.
Mmusi, I'll bring you in once again. So the Arch, as I mentioned, he was a climate change activist. He had many hats, rather, not just an archbishop. But what can you say to the family of Arch, who basically loaned us the Archbishop, as many people that are streaming here saying that as much as they didn't know him personally or have never met him physically, they felt like they knew him?
Yeah. You can't you can't dismiss the fact that the Arch passes at a time where there's a court case that Shell are engaged with here in the Western Cape about climate change issues. You can't dismiss the fact that the Arch passes at a time where, as a country, we are awaiting a Zondo Commission report. You can't dismiss the fact that day in, day out, we see racial issues and tensions. So to the family, from our family, thank you, but the best way we can thank you is to keep fighting. The struggle must continue. Archbishop Tutu laid the foundation so that a family like ours could exist, but that this fight we can continue. So I want to say to them, they dare not mourn as those without hope, but that the hope must be found in the fact that there's a generation of South Africans who say, we knew what Archbishop Tutu was trying to do. It wasn't always perfect. He'll have many critics, and he didn't get everything he'd wanted right. Others would say even the TRC was only but a short process, and that more could have been done. We are saying the more must be done by the next generation of people. And to his family, his sacrifice is something that we could never repay to its fullest, but we could try and live lives that emulate that life. And that is the best way we could honor him at such a time such as this one.
Thank you so much. That is the Maimane family talking to us about how the new arch, and also as a nation, taking over the baton in regards to some of the teachings that the Archbishop had, knowing him as a climate change activist, a human rights activist, an archbishop, somebody that loved children and advocated for their rights. And tomorrow, as of tomorrow rather, and Friday, there has been an extension for mourners that would love to pay their last respects at the St. George's Cathedral, where the arch will be laid in state between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. That is for Thursday, which is tomorrow, and Friday. He will be here at the cathedral, and mourners will be allowed to go inside in small groups, of course, due to COVID-19 restrictions, to say their final goodbyes. And also, as you can see, right next to the St. George's Cathedral is the flag of South Africa flying at half-mast. Right next to it is the LGBTQIA+ community flag, and we do understand that the arch also became one of the leaders, most prominent within the religious fraternity, to champion the LGBTQ rights community, and also to fight and continue fighting for the injustices and equal rights. And we heard from Mmusi Maimane saying that he was a man of faith, calling on people to love one another and accept each other as they were. And later on this evening, at the Cape Town Hall, there will be a memorial, or rather an interfaith memorial service at 6 p.m. where, as I mentioned, at the St. George's, at the grand, or the right opposite rather, there will be a screen for everyone to view that will not be allowed inside. And we do know that there's a string of memorial services, including events that will be taking place until the 1st of January in 2022, where the arch will be laid. And we do understand that following him lying in state, there will be a private cremation with the family, and we do understand that his ashes will then be buried here at the St. George's Cathedral on Saturday, the 1st of January 2022.
And that's how we wrap it up. Nasiphi Same, we leave it there for now as we do continue our rolling coverage on the life and times of Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu, wrapping up the